I'm Lynn Packer, and this is the second part of a video I posted in April about the Hill Farms Homeowners Association in Kaysville, Utah. In this part, I'll go into greater detail about how the developer, Destination Homes, adulterated the HOA concept. This report will begin with the HOA's refusal to provide access to key records. Then I'll put the corrupted Hill Farms HOA into historical context by looking at how homeowner associations came about in the first place. In 2013, Utah developer Destination Homes conceived its Hill Farms subdivision as a planned unit development. It was to be run by a mini-government called an HOA, short for Homeowners Association. HOAs set and enforce tougher restrictions than those imposed by local municipalities, especially about how each residence looks, such as the design and upkeep of its landscaping. But from the beginning, the Hill Farms HOA was never fully functional as required by Utah law. For example, the enforcement of protective covenants, the rules, went from sporadic to none, that is, zero enforcement, resulting in widespread noncompliance. It may be the first HOA in the United States, among thousands, to quit enforcing rules altogether. I documented that fact by records provided by the HOA's management company. But at the time I posted the first video, the HOA was still withholding other important records related to its failure to enforce rules. Two sets of records are essential to determine whether the Hill Farms HOA, or any HOA for that matter, is abiding by state law and following its own rules. First, records about the management company's routine inspections for infractions, warning letters, and fines. Those were provided. That's how I determined the HOA is no longer enforcing rules, including for landscaping. Second, new homeowner applications, along with the Architectural Review Board's approval of those applications for landscaping that conforms with the covenants. My request to see the ARB records was pending at the time I posted the first video in April. Landscaping within HOA communities is supposed to be designed and maintained at a higher standard than required by city code. Many HOAs require designs by licensed landscape architects. New home buyers must submit plans to an Architectural Review Board for approval. Utah law requires that HOAs keep records and make them available to lot owners during regular business hours at the association's address. After making multiple requests to view the Hill Farms landscape records, I was finally denied via a letter from the HOA's attorney, Blake Johnson. The reason for the denial may be the first in the history of American community associations. The Hill Farms HOA does not have them. It says it cannot provide what it does not have. It's the dog ate my homework excuse. Someone else has them, the declarant, who will not share them. Here's the letter denying access. I'll read this entire excerpt slowly. It's a bit complicated. In regard to the request for ARB records, unlike many ARBs that operate by board appointment, the Hill Farms ARB does not operate under the scope of the Board of Directors, and therefore not under the scope of the HOA. Declarant is the entity which has been reviewing those applications and making decisions to approve or not approve the plans. Those records are not technically HOA records, as those are held and maintained by Declarant in this particular situation. For that reason, the HOA is unable to provide those documents for inspection. Johnson said the declarant will provide ARB records when control is turned over to homeowners, and that could be at least another 2 or 3 years. This may be another first. Hill Farms may be the only HOA in the United States where the declarant is over any ARB. It's worth repeating what Hill Farms' attorney wrote. Unlike many ARBs that operate by board appointment, the Hill Farms ARB does not operate under the scope of the Board of Directors, and therefore not under the scope of the HOA. Declarant is the entity which has been reviewing those applications and making decisions to approve or not approve plans. But is that really true? Just what or who is the declarant? Summarizing from 2 previous videos, the Hill Farms Declarant is the entity that filed the Declaration of Covenants with the Davis County Recorder. That filing created the HOA. The declaration, with other governing documents, determines the rules and operation of the HOA. A declarant is usually the developer, such as Destination Homes. And on several occasions, I was told Destination Homes is the declarant. But no. In actuality, it's another entity called Legacy Neighborhoods, LLC, most of whose operation is shrouded in secrecy. The declarant maintains almost absolute control over the HOA until administrative control is turned over to the homeowners. The Hill Farms HOA declarant operates behind the scenes as an autocrat. What we know, the Hill Farms declarant has given itself virtual dictatorial control over the HOA. What we don't know, who exactly is exercising that power? Why we don't know? There are no minutes of meetings showing whoever acts as the declarant making major decisions like raising assessments, amending the covenants, and naming directors. Several times I asked the HOA's attorney and its management, who is their declarant contact? Who's giving them marching orders? They will not say. Back to the ARB records matter. The HOA attorneys claim that the declarant entity acts as the ARB, keeps the records, and has the right to withhold the records, is not supported by either the facts or the law. There is a stack of evidence contradicting the attorney's claim, beginning with the attorney himself. Just 2 weeks before the attorney told me the declarant handles ARB matters and keeps its records, he told me otherwise. The email said, regarding the ARB applications, those are handled by the board, as no ARB has been appointed at this time. They are stored on the Welch-Randall servers once received. Okay, to make it clear, he said the board of directors, not the declarant, acts as the ARB, and the HOA's management company, Welch-Randall, not the declarant, stores them. In other words, the HOA does have the records I requested. Next, is the declarant empowered by law or rule to act as or supervise the ARB and maintain its records? No. The Hill Farms bylaws say, the board shall take appropriate action to develop, implement, and update procedures for record retention. It goes on to say, the board may, if it elects, appoint such committees as deemed appropriate in carrying out its purposes, including appointment of the Architectural Review Board. After I got the declarant is the ARB letter, I asked the HOA attorney and manager what law or government document authorizes the declarant to run the ARB and manage its records. No response. More proof against the attorney's claim. The Hill Farms HOA record retention policy itself. It was adopted in response to my first video in 2019. It says, the Utah Community Association Act, Utah Nonprofit Act, and the declarant provide the board with authority to adopt policies with regard to record keeping. Goes on to say, the board may delegate and assign certain record keeping obligations to the manager of the association. If the association is managed by a professional management company, which the Hill Farms HOA is, such company shall act as records custodian and maintain any physical or electronic records of the association under direction of the board. The board and the manager are not the declarant. There is evidence the Hill Farms HOA manager, Welch, Randall, and Ogden, does have the ARB records, such as applications. 2 samples were shared with homeowners. These were not sent by the declarant, but by the manager, who is authorized to manage them. Question: is a declarant employee acting for the ARB who reviews and approves plans? No. It's not a Legacy Neighborhoods employee, but a Destination Homes employee who reviews applications. You can tell from one of the applications the attorney says can't be released. It's Kyle Johnson. He's drafting manager at Destination Homes, not Legacy Neighborhoods. Here's another ARB problem. More than a year ago, homeowners were told they would be appointed to the ARB. Here's an agenda from April 2020. On the agenda, the Architectural Committee, it said at the annual meeting there were 8 to 10 people interested. Brad, that's Brad Randall, he's the manager. Brad emailed the names after that meeting. It would be good to discuss potentially how we want to narrow those down to 3 to 5. Then it goes on to say John Warnick wanted to review the list, and then this will be discussed further. For now, Destination Homes will still review all ARB applications. It never happened. John Warnick, who is Destination Homes board member, put an end to that idea. And note, it is Destination Homes, not the declarant, reviewing applications. During a Zoom meeting, a member asked about the plan to put homeowners on the ARB board. The minutes show Haley Grayson asked, "A while ago, there was talk of an extension of the HOA board, an architectural review board, in order to review requests. Is that still on the table?" The minutes say John wants to hold off until people put in their yards. Goes on to say John W., referring to board member and Destination Homes employee John Warnick, John W. to take lead on approvals. Again, it's not the declarant, but Destination Homes employees who have been reviewing and approving landscape applications. Here are some facts about the declarant's powers. The declarant is empowered to hire and fire board members until turnover, when they will be elected by members. That's true. The declarant has authority to overrule any board decision. That's also true. But the declarant has no statutory or governing document authority to usurp board powers, such as appointing an ARB and acting as the ARB. Okay, focusing in on who is acting for the declarant. Neither the HOA attorney nor the manager will say. I'm left to guess who it is. It may be Destination Homes co-founder David Bailey, perhaps others. Here I'm repeating this chart from the 2 previous videos. The Hill Farms development resulted from a partnership of 2 companies, Destination Homes and Golden Land Management. They formed Legacy Neighborhoods, which became the declarant that filed the paperwork to create the Hill Farms HOA. David Bailey with Destination Homes and Cammie Marriott with Golden Land Management are Legacy Neighborhoods managers. So are David Bailey and Cammie Marriott acting as the declarant? Bailey and Marriott are certainly authorized to represent the declarant. The law permits them to assign or transfer that right, but it must be legally recorded so everyone would know there's a new sheriff in town. For 3 years, Cameron Scott was the Hill Farms HOA board chairman. At the same time, he was also land acquisition manager for Destination Homes. By the way, Scott told me he never chaired a single board meeting while he was over the board, so there were no minutes kept. He said the board did not want interference from homeowners. I asked him who represented the declarant when he was board chairman. Here's what Scott told me about how the declarant, Legacy Neighborhoods, came to exist. He said the Hill family decided to sell their farmland for housing development. They sought several proposals from home builders. After reviewing bids, Scott said part of the family wanted Destination Homes, the other wanted the Marriotts. Scott said the Hill family was about to compromise in favor of a third developer, Henry Walker Homes, but Destination Homes and Marriott decided to join forces under the Legacy Neighborhoods umbrella. Scott said Legacy Neighborhoods did not want to have a bunch of annual meetings and held none. As to who was acting for the declarant, Legacy Neighborhoods, Scott said the Marriotts did not want to touch the HOA. They dig dirt and build roads. He said David Bailey with Destination Homes called the shots. There were no formal meetings. They wrote the rules so they could meet in David's office, he said. There was no time to type minutes. They had to make decisions quickly. Utah law requires HOAs to register with state government. That registration is supposed to be accurate and kept updated. The Hill Farms' current registration shows David Bailey to be board chairman. There's no record I've seen that shows David Bailey is now being or having ever been chairman of the Hill Farms HOA board. Back to the issue at hand, the ARB records and who controls them. I showed this letter earlier wherein the HOA attorney denied access to the ARB records. You'll recall he wrote, "Those records are not technically HOA records, as those are held and maintained by Declarant. For that reason, the HOA is unable to provide those documents for inspection." Johnson also tacked on another reason my request was denied. The HOA also believes your request to inspect is based on a bad faith request designed to harass and annoy the HOA, property manager, and principals and employees of Legacy. That I was also harassing the Declarant and its employees was a rather odd part of the accusation, given I don't even know who represents the Declarant, and I've never seen any record that shows the Declarant has even a single employee. A few days later, I got a letter from board member John Warnick's attorney, Gavin Wenzel, demanding I cease and desist posting Warnick's sign violation in my April video. Warnick's attorney accused me of fear-mongering and of committing a cybercrime, among other accusations. During a May 12th online Zoom meeting, the HOA board, John Warnick among them, expressed its displeasure with my records requests. They complained about attorney's fees the HOA paid for dealing with records. Board members suggested homeowners email me asking me to stop. They did not defend the HOA's decision to quit enforcing the rules, but board member Warnick did say, paraphrasing, "Well, I don't think the HOA wants us to be the type of HOA walking around every Friday or Thursday or whatever and taking pictures of everybody and spending the time and money to send letters saying, 'Hey, this is not acceptable.' It's a rather startling admission for a board member that has a fiduciary duty to enforce the rules." But Warnick and I are at least in partial agreement. Absent a survey, we're both just guessing, I would agree it's likely most members do not want to comply with the rules and do not want them enforced. Even though the board has a legal fiduciary duty to enforce the rules, it would be very unpopular if all of a sudden rules were faithfully imposed. It seems to me that for most Hill Farms HOA members, the HOA concept is simply not a good fit. So, how did the whole HOA thing come about in the first place? Let's take a look. In 1826, Boston's Lewisburg Square on Beacon Hill became this country's first common interest development, also known as a planned unit development, or PUD for short. Owners drew up a document binding themselves and future property owners to the maintenance of a park. That group of Lewisburg Square homeowners is considered to be the founding fathers of residential homeowners associations. The document they created is thought to be a precursor to our modern restrictive covenants. The Lewisburg Square Association still exists today. Former Secretary of State John Kerry owns one of the units. The binding of future owners became a significant element of future associations. Utah's urban planning roots also go back to the same time period. Mormon Church founder Joseph Smith designed a planned community that later became the basis for the layout of Salt Lake City. Homes were planned within a grid of 10-acre blocks with a central community center. There were restrictions against farming inside the city, but permitted in surrounding green belts. The design foresaw modern zoning and land use regulations. The plan required well-maintained gardens or groves in the front yards. Architects who previously planned New York City Central Park designed Chicago's Riverside community in 1869. The plan called for impractical but picturesque winding streets, minimum lot sizes, and common green spaces. The developers were the first to use restrictive covenants to circumvent municipal zoning ordinances. After the 1871 Great Chicago Fire, the developers went bankrupt. By 1906, the imposition of restricted covenants took deeper root with the Kansas Country Club District. Even the words restricted and protected were emphasized. The developer used restrictive covenants for the maintenance of common areas and to control homeowners' freedom of choice. It created the Mandatory Membership Homeowners Association to assure control. When a buyer signed the deed, they automatically became members of the Homeowners Association and became subject to the restrictive covenants. The 1909 Forest Hills Gardens in Queens, New York City was designed by a landscape architect who wanted to preserve the look and feel of his plan. It extended membership beyond the very wealthy to multiple income home buyers. By 1913, America's West got in on the HOA Act. The Los Feliz Improvement Association was founded in Los Angeles. The neighborhood encompassed Griffith Observatory and the famous Hollywood sign. Walt Disney was a former member of the board of directors for an association which was heavily involved in promoting parks and lobbying local government on planning and zoning issues. In 1929, with the appearance of New Jersey's Radburn Gardens, the common interest development idea came to the masses. Alexander Bing was the first developer to use the CID model to provide low-cost housing for the working class. He created a mandatory membership homeowners association with its own private government based on the council-manager plan. Like the earlier Kansas development, Bing created a government by contract, not consent. The association was incorporated with the usual powers to provide municipal services, tax owners, and dictate architectural standards. In 1941, the Mormon Church's Home Beautification Project had some key features of modern-day HOAs. The massive undertaking involved beautification committees organized at the ward and stake levels. Wards acted much like today's associations, but without statutory authority, it had to use carrots instead of sticks to get members to beautify their homes and landscaping. Like today's HOAs, the LDS Church beautification program included inspections of individual lots, but it used awards instead of fines. A careful survey by the ward committee will show the conditions of the homes and what will be necessary to beautify them. The church created an awards program with a 100-point scorecard. Cleanup got 20 points. Condition of buildings, 20. Landscape principles, 30 points. That got the most points. Care during the season, 10 points. Condition of lawn, 10. And importance of trees, 10 points. In support, the church sponsored workshops led by landscape architects. In 1947, after World War II, a New York developer brought the United States even closer to modern-day community associations. Levitt & Sons Development perfected home building in suburbs using mass production building methods. One son was heavily involved in the landscaping and gardening aspect. Strict covenants were racist. The Levitts would not sell to black families. The Levittown projects garnered a lot of national news media coverage. Developers around the country took note.
Consider Levittown, Delaware Valley, USA, one of the world's largest single-unit housing developments. Here, 16,000 low-cost homes are being constructed on spacious landscape lots bordering gently sloped, winding streets. This is no mere collection of homes, but a carefully planned community, complete with modern schools, churches chosen by the residents, but conforming architecturally with other Levittown buildings, playgrounds that leave nothing to be desired, and modern shopping centers that offer easy access without through traffic.
Finally, we get to 1962 and the birth of modern-day community associations. The tidal wave of HOAs in the United States began in 1962 in the John F. Kennedy administration within the Federal Housing Administration, established by Franklin D. Roosevelt. 1934's FHA and the accompanying Federal Savings and Loan Insurance Corporation, FSLIC, were the backbone of the mortgage and home building industries at the time. Byron Hankey with the FHA, a Harvard urban planner and landscape architect, became the father of the modern era planned unit development, also known as the common interest development. Byron Hankey's actions and two publications broke open the floodgate. First, the key publications. Planned Unit Development with the Homes Association was published by the FHA in 1963. The Homes Association Handbook was published in 1964 by the Urban Land Institute. The handbook became the Bible for planned community and homeowner association development, a blueprint for the mass marketing of HOAs. It all began when Hankey authorized FDA insurance for a California community association. Up to that point, the FHA would not insure HOAs. For the community association concept to succeed, it had to qualify for federal government insurance. In 1962, at Hankey's direction, the FHA, as sort of a pilot program, insured townhome sales for Huntington Continental townhouses. Prices began at $12,000 for a townhome, plus $8 a month maintenance fee. Huntington Continental was hailed as a new living concept. It included parks, full landscaping, and a board of directors, which of course predecessor community associations had. What was different is that it had FDA financial support, and it quickly led to the FDA creating guidelines for other developers to follow. In essence, the Huntington Beach townhome development became the first modern-era HOA. Thousands of home buyers checked it out. Hankey said the Huntington Continental townhome development, spurred by federal FHA insurance, was a tremendous marketing success, and that every other developer wanted to replicate it. What Hankey calls a revolution continues to this day, as there are now hundreds of thousands of HOAs across the country. In an interview years later, Hankey described his authorization and reflected on its impact.
The decision was FHA should insure those properties. And in July of '63, then we developed standards and procedures and announced to the world that these kind of properties would be acceptable, these kinds of development. Now that's the point of real revolution.
Federal mortgage insurance rules began including planned unit developments controlled by HOAs. The handbook became a guide for developers across the country. The principles helped developers get around density laws, which meant lower costs and bigger profits. FHA's financial blessing created a windfall for developers and bankers nationwide. It accelerated the middle-class exodus to the suburbs and into common interest housing. The 1963 handbook gave developers substantial initial control of HOAs, with homebuyers gradually assuming control as construction progressed. Paragraph 2.3 said, "The association's board of directors is composed initially of developer-appointed members, then of a mix of appointees, and of homeowners elected at the annual meeting to maintain the common interest areas and enforce the governing documents. The mix changes to solely homeowners as the percentage of land homeownership shifts away from the developer. All members of a mandatory homeowners association must pay assessments to and abide by the association's governing document. Boards of directors have a legal responsibility, known as a fiduciary duty to the members. Violation of that duty may result in liability for individual directors." The FDA guidelines gave developers disproportionate voting power at the outset of construction. A democratic ideal would have been one vote per lot, with the developer losing votes and homeowners gaining votes equally as construction progresses, affecting the gradual shift in voting power. Under a one vote per lot scenario, homeowners would get control after half the lots were sold. But to slow that transition, the handbook guidelines said developers could give themselves 2 or even 3 votes per lot. That would push turnover, the point where homeowners had a majority vote, until at least 3/4 of all lots were sold. The handbook gave homeowners the right to vote, even if at the outset developers could outvote them. The right of every homeowner to membership and to vote is, in our opinion, critical to the strength and success of an automatic homes association. Community association history puts the corrupted Hill Farms HOA into perspective. The Declarant made a mockery of the original concept first envisioned in 1963. Destination Homes Legacy Neighborhoods was not content with giving itself 2 votes per lot, or even 3. It did not want turnover to occur at either 50% or even 75% of home sales. It gave itself 100 votes per lot, with turnover occurring only at the very end, 100% of lot sales, never relinquishing power. Still, that was not enough. The developer took the next step and, in practice, gave homeowners 0 votes per lot. Destination Homes has never let homeowners exercise even their underwhelming voting power. After 8 years, after selling more than 270 homes, there has never been a single homeowner ballot on anything. Here's the final voting power tally. Destination Homes, the Declarant, went from a 3 votes per lot maximum to 100. Homeowners went from 1 vote per lot to 0 votes per lot. Besides never permitting homeowners to vote, Destination Homes' corruption of the HOA concept reached a pinnacle when, in January 2020, the Hill Farms HOA stopped enforcing rules altogether. It may be the first HOA in the United States to impose no rules. There are more handbook concepts Destination Homes ignored. The original handbook suggested that for certain very important issues that a majority vote of each class would be required. That would enable even a few homeowners to have veto power over the developer declarant on matters such as fee increases. Plus, developers could not arbitrarily amend the covenants while in full control. Plus, all lots must pay assessments, not just those sold to homeowners. There are no such provisions in the Hill Farms governing documents. Other states prohibit developers from maintaining full control until 100% build-out. Colorado is at 75%, Texas at 90%. Illinois requires the developer to turn over the association to the owners when either 75% of units have been sold or it's been 3 years since the declaration was recorded, whichever comes earlier. If Utah had the Illinois law, Destination Homes would have turned over control 5 years ago. In 2018, there was a failed attempt to change Utah's law and rein in developer dictatorial control. The attempt was made with proposed House Bill 246. A Lehigh citizen asked his representative to sponsor the bill. The homeowner was concerned about HOA's lack of financial transparency and the balance of power that strongly favors developers. He said HOA boards are dominated by developers long after residents should be taking the reins. He wanted that balance of power swung more in the direction of homeowners by adjusting the law to increase the voice of homeowners on HOA boards over a quicker time frame. The proposed legislation would have required mandatory membership of homeowners on the board beginning when 51% of lots were sold, would have given homeowners a reserve fund line item veto power, would have mandated that during the period of administrative declarant control, the declarant, not homeowners, would pay for all common area maintenance, That would have been an incentive for developers to turn over power more quickly and stop taxation without representation. It was killed in committee before even getting a hearing or a vote. Wrapping up my 2 videos, the Hill Farms HOA, in terms of rules compliance and enforcement, died in January 2020 when the HOA decided to no longer enforce any rules. Multiple blows killed it off. The declarant's corruption of voting and turnover concepts, weak and selective enforcement turning into no enforcement, limited and sporadic voluntary rules compliance, enormous conflicts of interest among the declarant board members and manager, Utah law heavily favoring developers, including any who might be incompetent or unethical, and no Utah government support for HOA homeowners. Thanks for watching.